Nobody thought it would come to this. Not the WNBA, not her fans, and definitely not Sheryl Swoopes herself. But after months of tension, controversy, and whispers behind the scenes, it's official. Sheryl Swoopes has been fired again, and this time, the fallout is bigger than ever. Why? Because the final straw wasn't just a bad take, a questionable comment, or an awkward interview. It was Caitlin Clark, the one name that's been turning the entire WNBA upside down. The name that's been forcing legends to pick a side. And the name that, according to multiple insider sources, ended Sheryl's career. For good. So, what really happened? Why did the WNBA quietly pull strings behind closed doors to sever all ties with the woman once hailed as the face of the league's legacy? Why did Sheryl allegedly get blacklisted from key media appearances, uninvited from upcoming events, and dropped from brand deals overnight? And most importantly, what did she say about Caitlin Clark that pushed executives over the edge? Because this wasn't just any comment. It wasn't just another back in my day moment. No, this was a direct attack. A moment caught on mic that wasn't supposed to be released. A moment that showed how far Sheryl was willing to go to discredit the new face of women's basketball. And now, it's all unraveling. The clip has leaked, the fans are furious, and the WNBA is scrambling to clean up the mess. Stay right here, because what you're about to hear will change the way you look at Sheryl Swoopes forever. To understand just how wild and inevitable this drama became, we have to go back, way back, to the moment Sheryl Swoopes started seeing her place in the league shift. Now let's be clear, Sheryl Swoopes is a legend. She's not just any former player. She was the first player ever signed to the WNBA, a 3-time MVP, a 4-time champion, a name that used to be untouchable in women's basketball circles. She was the gold standard, until she wasn't, because something started happening in the last few years, something that many former stars weren't ready for. The new generation came crashing in. And it wasn't just talent. It was influence. It was views. It was brand power. It was Caitlin Clark. Now Sheryl had seen promising stars rise before. But this was different. Caitlin wasn't just lighting up scoreboards. She was dominating YouTube, breaking NIL records, landing endorsement deals with global brands before even touching the pros. And even more threatening, she was changing the face of the WNBA without even being in it yet. Inside sources say that privately, a storm had been brewing for a while between certain legends and the league's shift toward promoting younger, flashier talent. But it was Sheryl who couldn't hold back. The first public crack came during a panel interview in 2023, where Sheryl was asked about the rising hype around Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. Her tone? Cold, dismissive. She smirked and said, "I'll believe the hype when I see consistency." Many brushed it off as a competitive jab, a legend being cautious. But others? They saw it as the first sign of resentment. But it didn't stop there. Because behind closed doors, now Sheryl had started expressing major doubts, not just about Caitlin's skill, but about her impact on the game. She claimed the league was selling its soul for clicks, that it was forgetting its roots. And soon after, a private email leaked, an alleged message from Sheryl to a WNBA partner stating, "We're handing over the future of this league to influencers, not athletes." Boom. That one sentence exploded across social media. And while Sheryl's camp tried to play it off as being taken out of context, it was too late. The public heard the bitterness. And the WNBA? They started to distance themselves. Quietly. First came the brand events where Sheryl's name was conspicuously absent. Then the college game analyst job she was rumored to be offered vanished. But even with the tension growing, the league hadn't cut her off. Yet, because at the end of the day, she was still Sheryl Swoopes. Until the tipping point hit. And that tipping point was Caitlin Clark's official entry into the WNBA conversation. The moment she declared for the draft, the league shifted into full hype mode. Social media campaigns, highlight reels, and teaser promos ran wild. And Sheryl, she finally snapped. Insiders say she showed up to a WNBA promo meeting visibly upset. She allegedly said, "They're acting like she's the first woman to ever dribble a ball." From that moment on, league staff began treating her presence as a liability, not a legacy. And while the media played nice, things were boiling underneath. A former marketing director for a top WNBA sponsor revealed that Sheryl had rejected a collaboration offer because Caitlin Clark's name was on the same promotional material. Might you read that right? She reportedly refused to appear in the same campaign. That one decision cost her over $150,000. But money wasn't the issue. It was pride. And that pride, it set the stage for the moment that would change everything. Because once Sheryl realized the league was moving on without her, leaning fully into Caitlin's world, she did something she couldn't take back. A hot mic moment. An off-the-record conversation she thought wouldn't be heard. A conversation that would go viral in less than 4 hours and become the last straw. But before we get to that shocking moment, let's take a second to remember just how fast Caitlin Clark became the face of controversy and inspiration in the WNBA. This wasn't just a talented rookie. This was a full-blown media tornado. She was smashing records, packing arenas, outshining entire teams in search volume and online engagement, and doing it all with a level of confidence and swagger that rubbed a lot of veterans the wrong way. People like Sheryl didn't just see her as a threat to the game. They saw her as a disruption to the legacy they built. And when that resentment finally boiled over into a recorded takedown, it ended everything. It was supposed to be just another behind-the-scenes moment. A quiet, off-camera gathering of former legends, media reps, and sponsors during a pre-season WNBA promotional event in New York. No fans, no press, just a few big names sitting around a conference table, sipping coffee, and casually discussing the league's direction. But what Sheryl Swoopes didn't know was that someone's mic was still hot. And the moment that audio leaked, the entire foundation of her reputation came crashing down. It started innocently enough. A few lighthearted jokes about past games, light banter between players. But then someone brought up Caitlin Clark. And that's when everything changed. Sheryl's voice? Cold, sharper than usual. The tone? Unmistakable. You can hear her lean in and say, "I don't care how many threes she shoots. That girl's not built for this league." And then came the real dagger. They want to crown her the face of women's basketball? Over us? Over the ones who bled for this league? Please. The room went quiet, and Sheryl doubled down. She's not ready, she's just white hype. I said it, somebody had to. That moment, that exact line, was the spark that ignited a wildfire. Because someone in that room was secretly recording. And just hours later, that audio found its way onto Twitter via an anonymous burner account tagged simply @WWNBA Leaks. Within 30 minutes, it had over 100,000 views. By the end of the day, it was trending globally. Hashtag white hype, hashtag swoops leak, hashtag Caitlin deserves better. The reactions were instant and vicious. Caitlin Clark's fans were furious. The WNBA's sponsors panicked, and Sheryl? She went completely silent. No apology, no clarification, just a wave of deleted tweets and a PR team that refused to return calls. But it was already too late. Because suddenly this wasn't just about basketball. It was about legacy versus progress. It was about race, respect, and who gets to be the face of the league. And the WNBA? They were in full-blown crisis mode. Behind closed doors, executives scrambled to issue statements, reassure sponsors, and distance the league from Sheryl's comments. According to internal emails leaked days later, one exec reportedly wrote, This is our Rachel Nichols moment. If we don't act now, we risk alienating a whole generation of fans. By the end of the week, Sheryl's speaking engagements were canceled. Her analyst contract with a regional sports network? Terminated. An honorary role she held with her former team? Quietly removed from the website. But even as her empire crumbled, Sheryl didn't back down. She took to Instagram with a cryptic post, "You don't build a kingdom by bowing to trends. Let the real ones speak." The comments? Brutal. Thousands of people flooded the post, calling her bitter, out of touch, jealous. Others defended her, saying she was just keeping it real. But the division only grew. And then, just when the situation felt like it couldn't get worse, a second leak hit the internet. This time, it wasn't audio, it was screenshots. Private text messages allegedly from Sheryl to a friend, venting about the backlash. And in one message, she wrote, "Let the little girl cry. She'll never last a season. And when they drop her, we'll see who they run back to." That line? It broke the internet. Within hours, major sports news outlets ran headlines like, "Sheryl Swoopes doubles down, calls Caitlyn a little girl in private text. League legend turns villain overnight. Sponsors reconsider WNBA deals over toxic culture allegations." And that's when the WNBA finally acted. In a formal press release, they announced, "Effective immediately, Sheryl Swoopes will no longer be affiliated with league programming, branding, or promotional activities. We thank her for her contributions to the game and wish her well in future endeavors." Translation? She's fired. Again, for good this time. And what made it sting even more? This wasn't the first time. See, back in 2017, Sheryl had quietly been let go from a major coaching position amid whispers of unprofessional conduct. It never made headlines. Until now. Because with this new firestorm, every old skeleton was being dragged back into the light. Former players began speaking up. One anonymous teammate claimed, "Sheryl's always had a problem with younger players getting shine. Caitlyn was just the first one powerful enough to break the silence." Another WNBA insider tweeted, "It's not about race or rivalry. It's about relevance, and some legends can't handle losing it." But perhaps the most shocking twist? Caitlyn Clark said nothing. No response, no tweet, not even a like on a post. And that silence spoke volumes. Her team released a short statement. Caitlyn remains focused on the game and is committed to representing the future of women's basketball with integrity. And just like that, Caitlyn won the battle, without lifting a finger. But the war? Oh, it's just getting started. Because behind the scenes, whispers are growing that more clips of Sheryl exist. Even more damning footage that hasn't been released yet. And if that's true, this story could take an even darker turn. Just when you thought the worst was behind her, just when fans assumed the controversy had peaked, the real bombshell dropped. Because what was initially dismissed as just a hot mic moment and petty jealousy suddenly became part of a larger conspiracy. And multiple sports insiders and anonymous leaks started painting a picture of something far more calculated and far more dangerous. Whispers emerged from deep inside the WNBA media machine. Claims that Sheryl Swoopes had been quietly rallying other retired players behind the scenes for months, trying to undermine Caitlyn Clark's rise. At first, fans didn't want to believe it. It sounded too wild, too bitter. But then, the footage leaked. A full-length, unedited video from an off-air WNBA Legends panel taping. A closed-door discussion never meant to see the light of day. And what it revealed was chilling. In the 42-minute clip, Sheryl is seen openly criticizing not just Caitlyn, but the entire WNBA's push toward a whiter, younger image. She complains about legacy erasure, scoffs at stats comparing Caitlyn's numbers to hers. Arkin says, "They're manufacturing a hero, and we're all just supposed to stand here and smile while they erase us from the history books?" But the part that really lit the internet on fire? was when she looked directly into the camera, not knowing it was still rolling, and said, "If we don't check this girl now, she's going to run the league before she even earns her stripes, and I'm not going to sit back and watch it happen." That clip, paired with the already leaked audio and text messages, created a trifecta of destruction. Even her supporters started turning. On Twitter, one user wrote, "I love Swoopes, but this isn't it. This is gatekeeping masked as legacy protection, and it's ugly." And then, a twist no one saw coming. A surprise ally stepped into the spotlight, one of the most respected legends in the game. Lisa Leslie. In an impromptu appearance on ESPN's First Take, Lisa didn't hold back. "We built this league for the future, not for our egos. I respect Sheryl, but her actions and her words, they're a disgrace to the jersey we wore." The hosts were stunned. Lisa rarely speaks out like this, especially not against a fellow pioneer. And then she dropped the hammer. Caitlin Clark earned her spot. She didn't ask to be crowned. She's showing up, she's putting in work, and she's inspiring a whole new generation. If you're threatened by that, maybe you've already lost. That clip went instantly viral. #ThankYouLisa began trending within minutes. Caitlin even liked the post, her only social engagement since the scandal broke. And then, my ESPN broke another story. Sources confirm Sheryl Swoopes is being investigated for allegedly coercing other former players to publicly attack Caitlin Clark's media image in exchange for exclusive podcast deals and brand incentives. Wait, what? Now this wasn't just bitterness. It was strategy. And suddenly, everyone wanted answers. Who else was involved? Why were multiple ex-players all releasing anti-Caitlin statements within the same 48 hours? A few sleuthing fans began to connect the dots and discovered that several of these women had recently appeared on the same controversial YouTube podcast, a show that Sheryl quietly co-owns. The pattern was impossible to ignore. Even more damning? Screenshots began circulating of Sheryl allegedly messaging influencers offering paid debate appearances to stir drama around Caitlin Clark's WNBA entry. One DM read, "Come on my pod and say you don't buy the Caitlin hype. You'll trend in hours, and I'll split the views." Boom. The smear campaign was real. And Caitlin? Still silent. But the league? They weren't staying quiet anymore. In a follow-up press conference, the WNBA commissioner addressed the situation directly. "We are heartbroken that one of our pioneers chose division over mentorship. We do not support or condone any coordinated campaign to discredit any player in this league." And when asked about reinstating Sheryl in the future, that conversation is no longer on the table. Done, gone, blacklisted. But here's the thing. Even after all that, the audio, the footage, the DM leaks, Sheryl didn't apologize. Instead, she dropped a cryptic Instagram story. A black screen with the words, "Truth doesn't trend, and legacy can't be canceled." Fans were divided. Some praised her as a rebel standing against corporate sports corruption. Others slammed her as a bitter ex-star unable to handle a new era. But one thing became clear. This wasn't over. Because rumors are now swirling that Sheryl is preparing to release her own tell-all YouTube documentary, where she'll expose the WNBA, Caitlin's PR machine, and the deals happening behind closed doors. One insider even hinted, she's sitting on voicemails, and she's not afraid to drop names. If that's true, then this could spiral into a full-blown league-wide civil war. Legends versus rookies, gatekeepers versus trailblazers, pride versus progress. And Caitlin still hasn't said a single word. But the silence might be the loudest move of all. Here comes the public and industry reactions, approximately 1,000 plus words. For Sheryl Swoopes fired again, Caitlin Clark was the final straw. The internet exploded. The second Sheryl Swoopes' leaked footage went viral. Timelines turned into battlefields. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Reddit, you name it. Every platform was flooded with reactions ranging from disbelief and heartbreak to straight-up rage. Some fans felt betrayed, others felt vindicated, and a whole new wave of Gen Z sports fans, who only recently began following the WNBA because of Caitlin Clark's rise, were stunned to learn that one of the league's founding icons had been allegedly working to sabotage her behind the scenes. Yet one viral tweet that racked up over 18 million views within 24 hours read, "This Sheryl Swoopes situation is everything wrong with gatekeeping in women's sports. She paved the way, yes, but now she's blocking the path she helped build. Caitlin earned her spot. Let her cook." The tweet was reposted by NBA stars like Trae Young, Ja Morant, and even Stephen Curry, who added, "This generation stands on the shoulders of giants. But don't forget, the whole point of building a ladder is to let others climb." That one statement alone had ESPN anchors quoting it live on air. But while athletes and fans were rallying around Caitlin, the WNBA itself came under fire too, with many questioning why it took a viral leak to trigger action against Sheryl. A trending hashtag took over Twitter. Hashtag "Why was she still on air" clips resurfaced from WNBA broadcasts over the past year, showing Sheryl's increasingly critical tone whenever Caitlin's name came up. Sometimes even rolling her eyes or cutting off panelists mid-sentence if they praised Clark. One viral compilation titled "The Hate Was Always There" was uploaded on YouTube and TikTok, reaching over 3.2 million views in 48 hours. In it, Sheryl is shown repeatedly undermining Caitlin's accomplishments with quotes like, "Yeah, but let's see her do it against real defenders. She's no Sue Bird, not even close. Hype doesn't win championships." The backlash was fierce. Even major sports outlets like The Athletic and Bleacher Report issued editorials criticizing the WNBA's slow response and calling for stricter media accountability when it comes to protecting younger players from targeted legacy hate. Meanwhile, college coaches and players from across the country began posting messages of support for Caitlin. Dawn Staley, head coach of South Carolina, tweeted, "Caitlin's done nothing but work, play hard, and inspire. No player deserves to be ambushed behind the scenes." Her tweet was met with 500,000 plus likes and replies from countless athletes, many of them calling out the need to end the cycle of veteran bitterness. Then came the celebrity reactions. Yes, even stars outside the basketball world couldn't help but jump in. Gabrielle Union posted, "Whew, this Sheryl situation hurts. But progress doesn't wait for permission. Caitlin's the future. Let her shine." Issa Rae, who's producing an upcoming sports docuseries, reposted the leaked clip and added, "This is why we need new voices, new stories, not the same bitterness wrapped in legacy talk." Rihanna, a known women's sports supporter, liked several posts defending Caitlin and even followed her on Instagram, which fans took as a quiet endorsement. And that's when ESPN finally broke their silence. In a statement aired on live TV, they admitted the network was reviewing our long-term relationships with all contributors and taking this moment as a call to reassess our values, tone, and direction in supporting female athletes of every generation. Translation? They're scrambling to clean up the mess before more receipts drop. Because behind the scenes, leaks kept coming. One anonymous producer at ESPN claimed that executives had previously been warned about Sheryl's bias against Clark, but had been too afraid to alienate a legend. Even worse? One former WNBA intern leaked emails allegedly showing Sheryl refusing to work certain segments if Caitlin Clark was the focus, calling it disrespectful to the real pioneers. That email thread was picked up by multiple journalists, and within hours, the network was forced to confirm that Sheryl Swoopes would no longer appear on any ESPN programming for the foreseeable future. Boom. Canceled. Wiped. Gone. But it didn't stop there. Caitlin Clark's team finally broke silence, not through words, but with action. Her management announced a new initiative, a mentorship program for young women entering pro sports, named after her mother, with the mission of building bridges across generations, not burning them. It was a clear, respectful clapback. And the public ate it up. TikTok exploded with videos like, "Why Caitlyn's response just ended the legacy beef forever." Sheryl Swoopes chose violence. Caitlyn Clark chose impact. A masterclass in grace under fire. And while Caitlyn still hasn't spoken directly, fans noticed something that felt just as powerful. At her next post-game press conference, when asked about the drama, Caitlyn smiled and simply said, "I just want to focus on basketball." But as she walked off stage, she was wearing a Lisa Leslie hoodie. Mic drop. The message was clear. She's not alone. And as for Sheryl, in her last post was a cryptic image of a broken trophy with the caption, "They love you till they fear you, then they erase you." The comment section? Brutal. One fan replied, "No one erased you. You erased yourself." Another wrote, "Legacy is earned by lifting others, not tearing them down." The reaction wasn't just a backlash. It was a reckoning. The WNBA fandom had spoken, and the message was clear. There's no room for jealousy in a league built on growth. Just when the dust started to settle, just when fans assumed Sheryl Swoopes would lay low, stay silent, and let the internet storm pass, everything blew up again. Because late last night, when everyone thought the worst was over, a new leak hit the timeline. And this time, it wasn't a video. It wasn't a tweet. It wasn't even a viral clip from a forgotten interview. This was a full-blown screenshot dump, private text messages, between Sheryl Swoopes and one of the biggest names in sports media. The screenshots, allegedly obtained from an anonymous former production assistant, showed Sheryl strategizing, yes, strategizing, on how to manipulate public narratives around Caitlyn Clark's rise. And the person she was texting? Allegedly, a top-tier ESPN analyst, whose name we won't say here, but let's just say, you've seen him on nearly every panel show for the last decade. Here's what the texts allegedly revealed. Sheryl, if we keep calling it hype, it'll eventually stick. She can't be bigger than the game. Analyst, I can lean into that if you want. Next segment's on her anyway. Sheryl, perfect. Just make sure to mention that she's unproven against vets. I'll back it up in the next podcast. That wasn't just commentary. That was collusion. And once those screenshots dropped, fans lost their minds. Reddit threads with thousands of upvotes claimed there was now a coordinated smear campaign happening behind the scenes, led by veterans who felt threatened by Caitlyn's sudden rise. And suddenly, it all made sense. The subtle digs, the repetitive comparisons, the refusal to praise her without qualifying it with, but, all of it. Scripted? Planned? The backlash made the previous uproar look like a warm-up. #Swoopes setup started trending within an hour. Fans began digging up clips of analysts repeating the same talking points, questioning Caitlyn's toughness, humility, or leadership, and stitching them together in eerie compilations titled, "This Was Never About Basketball." Sponsors started backing out from Sheryl's upcoming podcast appearance. The WNBA released another statement saying they were reassessing internal vet influencer programs. And the ESPN analyst allegedly involved? He suddenly canceled 3 upcoming shows for personal reasons. But the most chilling twist came from a source deep inside the WNBA's PR division. According to this whistleblower, Clarty, who posted anonymously under the alias Hoop Truths, there were internal emails circulating months ago warning about a growing resentment network among certain former players. And guess who was allegedly named in those early warnings? Yep, Sheryl Swoopes. Not only that, but the email included a warning that, if this continues unchecked, the next generation will feel unwelcome and retaliate with silence. In other words, they saw this coming. And they did. Nothing. So what happens now? Here's where things get even stranger. Caitlin Clark's camp has remained mostly silent throughout the firestorm. Until today. Because just hours ago, Caitlin's manager posted a cryptic Instagram story. No caption, no hashtags, just a photo of Caitlin standing courtside with two WNBA legends behind her, Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi. Both of them smiling, both of them standing with her. That moment? It sent a message louder than any press release ever could. Caitlin isn't alone. She has the backing of the real greats. The ones who believe in building the league, not tearing it apart. And yet, even as the league attempts damage control, another chilling question hangs in the air. Who else was involved? Because if Sheryl Swoopes wasn't acting alone, if these text messages are part of a wider plan, then how deep does the resentment network go? Names are already being whispered. Former teammates, current media hosts, ex-coaches, even a retired WNBA GM. And with fans now on Truth Patrol mode, it's only a matter of time before more receipts drop. Because one thing's for sure, this isn't just about one woman. This is about an entire shift in power. The old guard versus the new face. Legacy versus progress. Gatekeeping versus growth. Caitlin Clark didn't start this war, but she may have just won the first battle. And as the league scrambles, one final message appeared on Sheryl's now deactivated Twitter account. A post that many believe may be her last public words for a while. History doesn't always remember truth, just volume. But guess what, Sheryl? Right now, the truth is screaming, and we're just getting started. And just like that, we're in uncharted territory. This wasn't just a fall from grace. This was a full-blown collapse, and the aftershocks are still being felt across the entire basketball world. Sheryl Swoopes, once untouchable, once revered, now finds herself at the center of the biggest scandal the WNBA has ever seen. But here's the thing. This story? It's far from over. In fact, it's just beginning. Because if those screenshots are real, if the coordinated campaign against Caitlin Clark actually happened, then we're staring down the barrel of a league-wide reckoning. So let me ask you, do you believe Sheryl was trying to sabotage Caitlin Clark's rise? Is this just the beginning of the old guard getting exposed? And should the WNBA step in and make a public example out of what just happened? We need to hear your thoughts. Drop them in the comments right now. Because every time you comment, share, and like, you help bring truth to the surface. Smash that like button if you think Caitlin Clark deserves respect. Share this video with someone who still thinks this is just internet drama. And don't forget to subscribe because trust me, we're not done here. These sources are already whispering about another leak coming soon, this time involving brand execs, media insiders, and a certain Legends-only group chat that's about to be exposed. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll be here when it drops, with all the receipts, all the context, and all the fire the mainstream won't touch. Because here, we don't play favorites. We expose the truth. One scandal at a time. See you in the next one. And remember, the louder they lie, the harder they fall.